one another. My mother said we was going to go to a rodeo outside of Lubbock, in a place called Rawls, Texas. My brother already knew her from the past, so anyway, we started talking and get to knowing one another and dancing, and that's how things got started. Dated for 3 years before we got married.
I'm Ann Hill, and I used to work at the Lubbock State School for about 24 years. Lubbock State School is a facility for intellectually handicapped people and fragile people. We provide all kinds of therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, counseling, medical treatment, educational programs. The school at the time I worked there had approximately 450 residents, and we had approximately double that number in staff. Just all of those different things that we provided, we had to provide most of it around the clock. All of the staff would have interacted with each other to some degree when they came out for coffee, when they left for lunch. If they had a problem with a report, they might visit with one another about how to handle it. Kay, she worked with me as a secretary. Kay was friendly and professional. She was a private person as far as dealing with me. I came in and brought her reports, and she started opening up to me and telling me things about things she did when she was a girl. But most of the time we knew each other. It was professional. But I worked closely with Peggy. Peggy was very warm and friendly. She greeted me with a smile every time I came in, and I was bringing her work to do, but she looked like she was delighted to see me every time I came in. It was hard to not love her. She was maternal almost in the way she treated me, despite the fact that we weren't that far apart in age.
I understand the caution, but the outposts need these supplies. I have to get them now. You want me into the city?
That's pretty morning. Got down, and usually she gets up early and she goes outside and smokes a cigarette, drink her little coffee, and then she goes and gets ready for work.
I'll make sure to get those seeds.
Mother normally would pass my house on the way to her job, and a lot of times we met each other on the way and would just wave at one another and talk on our cell phones, on the way to work. So that morning when she called me, I was 9 months pregnant at the time, and I asked her where she was, and she said that she had gone a different way to work, it was odd. She was pretty routine. Peggy and Kay both smoked, and they went out together and smoked or met each other out there sometimes.
You're always a welcome sight, Pathfinder.
My mom worked with Kay. They took their breaks together. They smoked together.
How goes your hunt for the missing satellites? Your people caught scavengers from Kadara Port stealing
That afternoon, I was leaving town for a long weekend.
I sent them out.
And I saw Peggy outside the building where she worked, and I stopped and spoke to her, and I told her I was leaving town. She actually said goodbye. And it's a little unusual here to say goodbye unless you mean you're not going to see each other again. And so it was odd.
Please accept my apologies. I hope you can look past this. It's not your fault. Kadara is full of bad people. They chose to stand alone. They'll suffer the consequences. I'll file a report with our leaders. Perhaps it's time the Resistance got involved. We'll rebuild the satellites and return them to space. To keep you updated with our latest charts. Thank you, Monica. No,
Turtle is legally blind.
Thank you.
my mom took him to work and would pick him up.
That day, about 4:45, Sammy, Peggy's daughter, had called me and says that he heard from Mom. And I says, no, I've been pretty busy and hadn't had time to, talk to her. She hadn't called me and I haven't called her. So I'll call her and see where she's at. I called her work number, she didn't answer. Then I called her cell number and it didn't answer.
You work on
She always returns a call regardless.
Nothing as big as these, but I have a small one.
5 o'clock comes, I get home. Got a call from my dad, Gerald. He wanted me to try to get in touch with my mom because he needed to work late.
She knew Gerald needed a ride home, and she would have made arrangements for him, or talked to him and said, hey, I'm going to be late.
My husband's a fireman, so I called him and said, hey, has there been an accident, on the route that my mom would have taken? And he said no, he hadn't heard of one. So as I'm trying to call her, I had a bad feeling. It just came over me, and within a matter of a few minutes, I was out the door going to look for her. So I drove to the school and arrived at the school. Her car was still in the parking lot. At that time, it was after 5 o'clock. Her work area was locked down.
Here, I found the solar
because of
amplifier.
the type of institution she worked at. So I was able to slip through the back door and I went to her office. Her office door was closed and there was a note on the door from her boss that said, Peggy, when you get back from lunch, please come and see me. If that note was still on her door and her car is still in the parking lot, then where's she at? I walk out, head back to the parking lot. I look over and my sister is walking towards me. Apparently, my little sister had been trying to get in touch with her all afternoon. And at some point, she just decided to come up there. And so we met in the parking lot and we walked to the front office to talk to her boss.
Yes, I do. Need some?
When I got up to the main administration building, her boss told me that my mom had gone to lunch with Kay Harrelson. An eyewitness saw my mother and Kay get into the same car with a man, and they had not come back from lunch. Eyewitness saw my mother and Kay get into the same car with a man, and they had not come back from lunch. When I heard that news, I knew it wasn't good. Something was awfully wrong. My mother did not do that. Number one, she got car sick, and the witness said that my mom got in the back seat. My mother would have never gotten in the back seat. Something was wrong. I had a phone call from my boss, and she said, I just want to let you know that Peggy and Kay have disappeared. And I was just shocked, stunned. I couldn't imagine that anything terrible had happened.
about 6:30, and then we went to her house. My mind was going in 50 different directions.
Your mind is racing around. You're constantly trying to, what could have happened? What could have happened here?
Everything's going well.
Where could she be?
I've never lied to a director before. Pathfinder, it's a
I called 911
I'm Ambassador
and asked for an officer to be sent to my home so that I can make the missing persons report.
Quite the wake-up call.
I know what it's like. Jumping out
I
of
got
the
access
cryopod
to
and on fire.
Kay's husband's
You've had it far worse.
phone number, and I called him and I asked him to file a police report because they would take it more seriously if there were two women missing instead of just one.
From wrecking it, no matter how hard they try.
When the officer came to my home, he took down the story, and I told him, this is not right. My mother would never run off. She would not leave my dad stranded at work. She would not miss work, not come back from lunch. She had a doctor's appointment the next day. She was supposed to be working through her lunch, so she would have time to go to her doctor's appointment.
If someone doesn't look into it, but I don't have the staff to spare.
I can go settle things. I'm a friendly face for both sides.
We started the search the night she went missing. As a family, we held hope that she would be found alive. My husband and his sister got in their vehicle and drove around just trying to see if we could find her somewhere in a park, at a playa lake here in town. We were just hoping she'd call and say, hey, I'm here and everything's fine and come get me. They didn't find anything.
My name is Billy Kuntz. I'm currently a captain with the Lubbock County Sheriff's Office. In 2006, I was working as a detective with the Lubbock Police Department. I was assigned to this particular case on August the 10th of 2006, which would have been the next day after Peggy Merriman and Kay Harrelson were both reported missing. When you have a missing person case, the first thing you're going to do is talk to their relatives, of course, and then try to figure out the last place that they were seen, and then start basically backtracking from there.
I was invited.
The first people that were talked to by the patrol division was the family, Gerald Merriman and then Mr. Harrelson, and then we quickly sent two detectives to the state school to try to start doing interviews out at the state school.
I want to be allies. Equal allies.
My thoughts initially on the case were that, we had to determine if this was two ladies, pull a Thelma and Louise, go to Las Vegas for the rest of the week. We just didn't know. So we basically just had to start the investigation there and try to determine that.
But he didn't used to be like this. He was curious. Brilliant.
The next day we continued the search.
Even without exaltation, they change us.
We kind of broke up in groups. So a few went to the state school, and a few of us went to the police department.
Towards aliens.
The other ones kind of just waited by the phone, waiting to hear something.
I hope so.
A witness at the state school was able to provide actually a pretty detailed description of the vehicle that they entered. So I went up in the Texas Department of Public Safety helicopter and just began flying, looking for a vehicle that matched the description that they got into, just to see if that vehicle had been abandoned. Strangely enough, at the Canyon Lakes, there was a sedan vehicle similar to what was described to us. It was located under the water in the lake, so we thought we had a break. But then fire department came out, pulled out of the lake. It was just a stolen car that had been there for quite some time and wasn't involved.
What does it take to be left alone?
Ambassador Yao sent me to check on you.
We were able to rule out the fact that they left voluntarily or were not at least returning voluntarily, because we began to look into the financial aspect, and then also ended up finding out that they had not made any calls and there had been no activity on their bank accounts, withdrawals of money, anything that would lead you to believe they planned to disappear.
That's a weird thing to say.
We
How'd he
kept
threaten you?
Kay's husband up to date on the searches, where we were having them and when we were having them, and asked him many times if he would like to help.
The whole conversation made no
And
sense.
it's not that he didn't want to help, I think.
I'm not
I
saying
think he
you're
just
wrong,
had a whole
but
different
I
way
am
of
down.
handling
We're guests here.
what was going on.
Exactly.
And I really think he thought Kay would come back.
When he left,
and walked
I
through that
tagged
door.
him with infrared dye from my sample kit. Invisible to the naked eye, but not to a scanner.
I'll scan people around the Resistance headquarters. See if I find him.
You're supposed to represent our interests on Aya. Go, represent. I have work to do.
There was someone who saw the two ladies get into the car with another person, and the young lady who saw them recognized the person they were with, but she didn't know who he was. I found out later that she was newly hired at the state school, and so she recognized the person but didn't know his name.
Hello, Pathfinder. Any good news for me?
I picked up his figure earlier. They might be in guard.
This is unfamiliar
When you
to me.
do a composite sketch, basically what we'll do is we'll have the person come back to the police department, and we have an officer specifically trained to do the composite sketch.
Or is this what we really look like? Implications. Pathfinder, you may have discovered our earliest artifact yet.
If I'd known what a big deal it was, I would have let it ride shotgun.
Anytime you put out a composite sketch, you're going to get a lot of calls and multiple leads, so every one of those has to be
I found
run
it in one of
down.
their homerooms.
Son of Earth. It's an ancient Ravan, a musical instrument. It uses Zantara's body energy to produce music. We have them now, but nothing is beautiful.
There was a lot of fear among the women because we not only didn't know if it was somebody around us, but we didn't know if it was somebody out in the community that we might run into. So there was a lot of fear in the whole community. It was a really strained
I'll come back when I have time.
atmosphere. Everybody was speculating. Everybody was worrying. We were looking at one another, wondering if the person who'd taken them was among us. I heard some speculation about who it might be, and I had to agree that the sketch did look a lot like
This
the
is quite a
groundskeeper.
place.
It feels like home to me. Sometimes I think I could move in here. But it's got a long way to go. Someday we'll fill it with relics of the past, each one telling a story. And the people will come here to learn. And to remember.
You'll get there.
With enough hard work, yes.
Any insight you can give me on when it took?
We don't know much. To our understanding, it's always been...
He did work at the state school. That's
I'd
all
love
we
to be
knew
the one
about
to
him.
solve that mystery.
The groundskeeper was interviewed at the police station.
What does that mean?
I forget who people went around for that. When the scourge appeared,
At the time, they had a couple of suspects. The other one was a union representative that had
The
flown in
ship's crashed.
from another city. He happened to be in the school on that day. I had heard that a state union representative had been to the school. It didn't happen very often, and they didn't stay very long, usually a day or two.
I hadn't even thought of that.
Somewhat matched the description and had a car that was close to the description.
And you're a Pathfinder.
I kind of inherited the job.
So did I. I was apprenticed to the former curator. It was my job to bring an artifact
They
to
were
the world.
both totally cooperative, gave access to their phones, gave statements to their whereabouts during the time they came up missing. All that was quickly verified. That's basically how they were eliminated, because their story checked out.
Oh, yes.
The third person that came in as a potential suspect based off of the composite sketch was Mickey Patterson, who was assigned to work in risk management at the local state
14?
school.
That's insane.
Why?
Mickey Patterson and I
Just
had
the
worked
one.
in the same office for
That's terrible.
probably close to 10
come back when I
years.
have some.
He was our safety
Stars,
officer.
Albert
He
Travers.
gave presentations on different safety aspects, how to use the fire extinguishers, what to do in a tornado. Mickey always seemed quiet, and he always seemed to me to be a little like downtrodden, a little sad, and a little out of sync with the rest.
He was at work the same day they were at work. Then he was gone for a few days after they went missing. And on that Monday or Tuesday when he came back, his hair color was dyed a different color. His facial hair was gone. He changed his appearance.
Mickey Patterson did come to the police station voluntarily to be interviewed. Mickey's initial story was that he had become sick at work and he had left the state school around 12:30 to go out to trailer house. We knew he lived at trailer park out on West 19th in Lubbock, and so we sent detectives out to that location and began looking at their security camera footage of what time he may have arrived there. Security footage acquired from trailer park indicated that he had pulled in at 12:03 p.m., which was a different time than he had stated before. It also appeared somebody was in the front passenger seat. We were unable to determine if it was a male or female, but in his original statement that he had given, he claimed that he had returned to his trailer park by himself, so we knew that he was not being truthful in that statement.
Communicate long enough resistance. Have a team that's been in the field for 6 months without resupply.
When Mickey Patterson was confronted in the second interview about the information from the security footage, Mickey Patterson changed his story to, yes, he had left the state school earlier than what he said, and that he had gone to the area of 3rd and University, and that he had picked up a prostitute that he knew by the name of Rachel, and that they had gone back to his trailer.
Thank you for the advice, Pathfinder.
Mickey Patterson's house was searched. It was noted by the crime scene investigators that went in there that it was unusually clean to be a single male's residence. However, there were no items of evidence that linked him directly to the disappearance of Peggy Merriman or Kay Harrelson. While we're working on the investigation, Mickey Patterson, his stories, looking into the case. There were other detectives that were at the state school interviewing everyone. We were looking into emails in between the 3 individuals. We were looking into phone calls being made in between the 3 individuals, and anything that would basically link the 3 of them together. It gets very frustrating when you have a suspect like Mickey Patterson who gave us 2 different stories. We were able to discount both of those stories and then still not be able to arrest the person. However, you can't jump to conclusions, and we still have to follow the evidence to ensure that we get the right person.
We just had to continue to keep looking day in and day out, every day that we could.
Police department, they have limited resources and limited personnel, and they can only do so much. So it was crucial that searches were gathered and done, and getting outside agencies involved to come and help us.
As the family, we held hope that she would be found alive.
I'll get more.
But, I mean, whose house do we go knock on? What door do we go knock on to find her? We worked with our local media and asked for volunteers at a certain time.
You know, they had eyes on Mickey for several weeks after the incident.
One of the detectives said, give me a call and told me that we needed to search north Frankfurt. Mickey Patterson was sitting out there on the highway.
The bosses.
And just sitting there looking towards Frankfurt.
For what I said to him.
And he would just sit on the side of the road for
Tell me yours.
30, 45 minutes, an hour. He would just sit there, not doing anything, just sitting there and looking.
We each
Went
live
out
here
and
a short
searched the
time
area.
and then move on.
Searched
For
it,
someone to come, another must go.
didn't find
The
anything.
exchanges are chosen at random.
We were searching
We told this arrangement
bar
to the
ditches,
south. time of
and
change.
old country
It
roads,
worked well
abandoned homes,
until now.
abandoned cars.
You lost some credibility. Was it because of the facade?
That's one way to see it. When our leaders agreed to make a place for your people here, it came with a cost. My friend won a place on hire, but he sold that slot so one of you could stay here instead.
Sold it how? What did he get?
Comforts for his family, resources to improve their home on Havar. He always put others before himself. That's how he died, fighting Ket on Vold. When I found out, I was angry. Said things to your botanist I shouldn't have, but I'd never...
Someone on the search had called back
I believe
and told us that they
and
had
I'm
found
sorry
the
for
body.
your loss. Between us,
At that point, I didn't know
botanist is
if
gonna
it was
get
Peggy or if it was
You didn't
Kay
feel my
or if
anger.
it was possibly someone else.
I'll talk to our ambassador, see if we can minimize our impact on the
After I got the call,
We don't expect things
I
to be
did
easy.
proceed out to the
Only
scene
that you understand, nothing is free for us.
just south of Shallowwater, Texas, just west of Lubbock. The body was dumped like a piece of trash on the side of the road. It was obvious to me it was the body of a female with blonde hair. I had a pretty good idea who it might be. So this is where the search party located her body. Was just laying in the bar ditch, and I remember she was either the head or the feet of the body was kind of tipped up a little bit on the incline, and there were tumbleweeds around it. A body in the state that body was in, there was no way to make a quick determination over, what led to the end of their life. After the crime scene investigation was done there where the body was located, then the body was taken to the medical examiner's office.
We didn't know for a little while whose body it was.
Go
There were
Vijay,
other women
Andrew.
missing.
I've been practicing the
From a
language.
long time ago, we were hoping that it wasn't either Peggy or
Do you know
Kay.
about the
We were so
facade, the Angara
desperately
robbery,
eager
the
to see
facade
them
he
both
surveyed
return
alive?
home alive.
I've heard
We
of
were
it.
grief-stricken, and we didn't know
Angara
who
was
we were
selling his
grieving for
slots to
yet.
come here, so our people can stay in their place. Including a member of the Angaran resistance. He was killed on Vold. Wouldn't have happened if he'd been here.
No one told me of this
There was
arrangement.
conjecture
We have
that
to do
maybe
something.
whoever abducted them was after Peggy and Kay
could
just
let
got in
Angara
the
who give
way,
up their
and
slots live on
that
the
maybe
excess.
Peggy was
It's
being
safer than
held
gold.
somewhere.
Exactly what I
There's
was
another
thinking.
flare of hope.
No one should suffer on
Because
our
she's not been
behalf.
found yet.
Thank you, Patrick.
She can still be alive.
I'll
She can
forward
still
your
be
proposal
okay.
to Director Tan immediately.
That's all for now.
I'm here if you need anything.
It started raining right after we found Kay, and it rained for days. And that area was flooded. Once we were able to get back out there, that's where we started, and we just expanded it from there.
We intensified our search in that area on ATVs, aerial searches with helicopters, and we searched and searched and searched, and the family searched, and we could not locate Peggy. The investigation at a certain point went cold because we just ran out of leads to fall upon. We believed that we had the suspect identified. We just didn't have enough evidence to arrest him.
There were lots of meetings with our office and with law enforcement. They would present to us what they had. We'd talk about it, say, let's run this down or run that down. And so I think it was more of a mutual decision to say we need a little bit more before we feel like we can go forward.
Ket genetics defies everything we know. They're bits of different species, and yet all Kets.
We were kept very
It's
informed.
bizarre, horrifying,
We knew that Mickey
fascinating,
Patterson
all at
was not
once.
living at home.
Just think. While
We
you're
knew
poking
that
around in their
the
genetics,
state school
they're
had
probably doing the same with ours.
put him on administrative paid leave for
Wonderful.
almost a year.
That's me never sleeping again.
His car had been impounded,
How'd you get back
and
to
they
that?
were searching it.
Sounds good.
And we knew that they were asking him for polygraph test and would question him on occasion.
Detectives' hands were tied. They were at a standstill. We needed to file civil suit.
have some opportunities that you don't have in the criminal side. You can compel people, to do certain things that you could never do in a criminal case.
In a civil case, it's basically a preponderance of the evidence, which takes much less than beyond a reasonable doubt as you do in a criminal case.
The civil attorney here in town contacted us just to see if there was anything that they could do to help move the process along. We were trying to do anything and everything to make something happen. We just did not have enough evidence to proceed on the case. And the civil side did help us kind of shake a little bit out.
Mickey Patterson wanted to take a polygraph test, but he wanted one from a private polygrapher. I think he wanted to take the test because he thought maybe if it was somebody that his attorney hired, then he could show that he beat it.
He paid for it out of his own pocket and went to a private person to do it. He was telling everyone he had passed it.
But we had heard through the grapevine that he had in fact failed that polygraph.
And since he was telling everybody the results of those polygraph tests, and he was not being truthful about the results of those polygraph tests, our argument was that he's waived a confidentiality and a privilege for that not to be used.
In the interview with the polygrapher, he did admit that Kay Harrelson and Peggy Merriman had accompanied him to his trailer. He claimed that Peggy and Kay had had sex with each other and that he had thrown him the keys to his car and he didn't know what happened after that. I didn't believe it any more than I did the other stories he had given. I did believe the fact that they had gone to his trailer with him. Once this information from the civil case came out, that pushed the district attorney over the edge to go ahead and file the criminal case for the murder of Kay Harrelson.
We'd kind of given up hope that we were going to find her, and we were proceeding on Kay Harrelson's trial. And I got a call that a rancher saw something that didn't look right, and kind of long story short, we were able to recover Peggy's body.
This is Cora's life,
I was at work, found some skeletal remains out there by the landfill. Thank God that somebody found her. That was a good thing for all of us.
It was relief when we finally got word that our mother's remains had been found and discovered. There was this weight that came up off of us.
I felt relief knowing that we wouldn't have to wonder and we could grieve like a normal death and move on with our lives.
Getting a scan.
Peggy was a wonderful friend, and I intended to stay in touch with her, and I felt cheated out of that opportunity. I really felt that a lot, and heavy-hearted to know the terror that she probably went through.
Anomaly on sensors.
biggest pieces of evidence that we had were cell tower records and cell phone records of Mickey Patterson. Where Kay's body was found, a couple of weeks after the murder, we had him and his phone pinging in that area where Kay's body was found. In other words, he had no business being out in that part of the county. When we were able to find Peggy's body, we looked at cell tower records again, and around the time of the disappearance, we had his phone pinging at where Peggy's body was found. Miles and miles and miles away from where Kay's body was found. And so we thought that that was tremendous evidence to show his culpability in both of the deaths of those women.
We're approaching the nav points Cora found. Something's there. It might be an arc, but the damn scourge isn't helping.
Sam, help out with sensors.
Hard to believe the Lucinia could survive in all this.
I cried when
It's going to be all right.
when they found him guilty. It was similar to that feeling of when they told us that they had found her mother's remains. There was a sense of relief.
The commando you mentioned. You still believe she'll save the day?
It felt good to know that finally this man we had suspected
detecting an initiative
for all these years to have committed these crimes to finally be going to jail for it.
Signs and minimal power, multiple hull breaches.
It was a relief to know that he was going to be off the street and
If she's space
not
ready,
harming
we'll cruise
anyone
along.
else.
That's all we need.
I've thought a lot about
take us in.
why
I'll try.
she would have
Must
gotten
be
in the
one
car
document
that
still
day.
holding together.
We've never found out. No one's ever said. Mickey's never said. And we'll never know. And I don't know why she got in the car that day. I don't know why she got in the back seat. I don't think she wanted to go. I believe she went for Kay.
We're aboard. In
The
response
first
to
question that victims almost always ask me is, why did this happen? And I've never been able to give them an answer on what the details were. He never was forthcoming in saying what happened. I don't know if he tried to sexually assault them and they obviously objected to that, or thought he killed them because of that, or he just killed them for fun. I don't know the answer to that.
What's left of the Lucinia? Come up to the bridge. Maybe you can help fix
When I got the phone call that Mickey Patterson had died in prison,
Someone's jumping.
it was a day that I finally had
This area is
release of tension. Even though he had been put in prison,
whatever happened left the
I had never let it go. I had never gone and cried my eyes out and just let the feeling go. It was done. The story was done.
Into space.
And that was...
Respectfully, yes. We can't take any more chances.
I would, I'd like to, really introduce her to her grandkids and her great-grandkids.
Don't mind the captain. Scolding me.
Her getting to share with them and impart into them her character.
I thought
just the way she'd kid around and the way she'd love on you.
Like her Tiami.
So I'd like to see that.
I served with the Sorry Commandos, ma'am. Memorized all
Just
your
because she's gone
Nature
and not
of the
here,
Sorrow is dead. Sarissa was next in line.
she is always
Her
with
battle
us
manual
in
had
spirit
kept the cat off my arc.
and soul.
That ends
She's
today.
ingrained in us
We'll see her arc safely back to Axis.
and her kids and her
We
grandkids.
tried everything else.
Matriarch
we love her
Shara died
deeply.
trying to negotiate with those Ket bastards.
And we'll see her
So I
soon.
took something precious from them, too.
She did
I
a good
stole a
job.
module containing tactical data. All their secret routes through this phenomenon.
We call it the Scourge, ma'am.
Called
Leak it
a
out and never
suppressive
get through.
person.
We'd
The
stand a better
suppressive
chance
people
against
are intent on just doing
Had
harm.
the same thought. He sent his elite agent, Valiant, and his
I
destination.
had access to personnel files of all kinds of psychiatrists.
We sent forces
Now
to
just
Florida.
slip one or two of those
Sarissa's
files
theft is
in my
anything
bag.
dramatic.
I'd go home for the night. They would be copied.
Pathfinders have
I'd bring the
secrets.
original file back in the morning.
I've taken my share.
Scientology taught me you can do anything
to get the Ark out
as
of
long
it
as
before
it
this
destroys
valley
an
catches
enemy of Scientology.
An FTL burn long enough to lose him.
We had coverage at the Better Business Bureau, at the American Psychiatric Association, and at the Attorney General's office.
But those systems are below deck.
Scientology
with the
knew.
quarters.
Another Pathfinder team could
Get Callum how to drive home. Now Sam and I will finish deciphering the Ket data. We'll turn the Valiant's secrets against him.
Good job for you.
I was told there's this woman named Paulette Cooper. She wrote a book called The Scandal of Scientology.
I'll give you
Bad
a
news. If you write a horrible book on Scientology, automatically you're evil. My guardian, he said,
She's coming to Boston to meet with her attorney.
we need to follow her.
Giving us to you.
And then
To you.
And then he listed out exactly what she was going to. Alice Crimmins was just about the hottest ticket in Queens in 1965. She had it down, boy. Beautiful, sexy, soon to be divorcee. I lived a couple doors down back then, and I can tell you, all us girls wanted to be her.
The sooner we find those
But
commandos,
that summer, something so awful happened. Eddie! Missy! Time.
Was it this quiet when the Arks were traveling through dark space?
Quieter. They weren't busted up back then. The Lucinia will be back to
Something so horrifying that none of us would ever be jealous of Alice again. All that attention she got would become a living hell.
Shoot your rescuers.
Eddie!
And humans?
Missy!
Your Ark made it?
To this day,
Just
I
about.
still wonder
I'm
what
riding
really
on
happened.
Are the kids with you?
I'm Vidaria Demore.
Eddie, don't play games with me. Eddie, please don't do this to me. I woke up and I went in the room. They're not here. They're not anywhere. They're not here.
Right, yes.
They're not here.
The cat forced the doors open and the safeties are draining power trying to shut them.
Don't worry. My Sam can probably override the Wildcat deal.
Ket can survive in vacuum for a little while. If we shut the doors, the Valiant's pet hunters lose their last escape
Queens was a
route,
safe part of New York
too.
City.
Pray the power will be enough
I
for
know
FTL
because I lived right there in Kew Gardens. It was working people and families. Nothing really bad ever happened there. That was the Bronx or even Manhattan.
Breathe.
But when those kids disappeared, that changed everything. Nothing would ever be the same for any of us.
I'll keep watch.
And Alice's nightmare was just beginning. That's me. And that's our street. Nice, right? I was right there when the first police car showed up. But I didn't give it a second thought. How could I have known what this would turn into? First, a couple of uniformed officers show up. Then the word spreads that there are kids missing. And a couple of detectives come over.
Panel door closure at 21%.
The children's bedroom window is open. The screen propped against the wall. And a, what they call a porter's cart, which is a baby stroller with a box on top, is now right under the window.
The overwhelming majority cases of missing kids are resolved with the child being found and being some rational explanation. In fact, that's because it's found out that these kids have been known to have crawled out the window. But in the past, they really didn't go that far. They would stay in the yard, maybe go next door.
Eddie was 5, and Missy was 4, and they went everywhere together. He was very protective of her. People often remarked on how close they were.
Panel door closure at 77%.
When was the last time you saw them again?
Around 8:30 and 9. That's when I put them to bed.
Alice told detectives that she had
think in the afternoon.
Cat access is cut off.
And that they left the park around 4:30. Then she said they went to a deli and that she bought a package of frozen veal and some soda. Took them home, gave them dinner.
What was that?
I estimate that several of the ark's electrical junctions...
After dinner, she suggested to the kids, hey, let's go for a ride. And she took them on a drive.
Bedaria, Sam says we lost some electrical junctions.
I know. The old
That was 9 o'clock in the evening.
Be calm, soldier. What could have made him over?
And the neighbor told police that she walked past the building.
Theories can wait, people.
And she heard Missy and Eddie saying their prayers at that time.
Those cats, they must be watching us. If they delay
She said that she checked up on Eddie and took Eddie to the bathroom at about midnight.
Flash some lights, make some noise, get the kid off our backs.
So that was the last time she had seen the children. Alice had said she didn't know if she'd locked the door.
Their room had a hook and eye latch lock on.
Which way to the lower deck?
The story is that Eddie Jr. had raided the refrigerator before. So there was a lock on the bedroom door, keeping the kids in from doing that. She went in, she saw that the kids had slept in their beds. There was no sign of any struggle, but that they were gone. Uniformed officers start the search.
You're looking in basements, you're looking in, bushes, backyards. You're trying to comb the area. No one's seen these kids there.
They were questioning neighbors. When the cops showed up and started asking questions, I gotta admit it was exciting. They got caught up in it. And there was this rumor in the neighborhood of a bushy-haired stranger who had tried to lure a little boy out of his apartment. He was really trying to coax this little boy out of the apartment.
You ever seen him before?
No.
So I was looking out from the window. I really didn't see exactly his hair color.
But every neighborhood has that story about some mysterious creep who snatches kids, right? In 1965, the term stranger danger was not even known. It just wouldn't have been a priority for police to go and investigate those leads. Besides, why would they go looking for some phantom pervert when there was real drama right in front of them?
Alice and Eddie were in the middle of a divorce custody fight.
The neighbors thought, it's a custody thing. Alice and Eddie Crimmins. Boy, oh boy, there was a soap opera. She kicked him out a year ago and told him she wanted a divorce. Now, they were both Roman Catholics, so this was a big deal. Eddie just wouldn't accept it. He moved out, but he rented a room close by, and he'd always show up places trying to keep his hopes up. This was the early days of women's lib, and she was apparently enjoying a sex life that was really frowned upon in Queens. And she was pretty open about it.
You live around here?
Yeah, I see you around.
In the complex? Wow.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Oh, wow.
Oh my gosh, I know I've seen you.
Yeah,
What's your name?
It's Joe.
Oh, Joe. Alice.
Good to meet you. Can I talk to you for a second?
Yeah, go ahead. I guess you are. And the really sad thing was, it was the kids who got caught in the middle. Over and over.
Eddie! Eddie!
So that raised your antenna right away, see? That's pretty likely now that this disappearance has something to do with that.
We know you guys are having some problems. If this is a prank, custody thing. It's not a prank. You tell us right now.
The two detectives in this case were the classic old-timer young guy team.
George Martin was getting close to retirement, and Jerry Peering was in his 30s.
Alice, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you some questions in the other room.
Then they decided to split them up.
Listen, Eddie, I want to ask you a few more questions. Let's start with yesterday, around 6 p.m.
Eddie says that the day the kids went missing, he began the day by playing golf at a public golf course. He went and had some pizza at a fast food place, had some gin and tonics at a bar.
And he went home. And then I went home. You didn't hear anything strange during the night?
I already told you this.
Please just answer the questions.
No.
Do you have any boyfriends?
2.
Just 2?
Yes.
You didn't have any of these boyfriends over last night?
No.
Jerry Peering doesn't like the looks of Alice Crimmins.
He's seen women like this. She's a little bit of a wise guy. She's too good looking. Her clothes are way too tight. It just makes him bristle.
Why isn't this mother whose kids are missing looking upset? Why isn't she weeping? Why isn't she distraught? Why does she have all this makeup on?
We thought she was just a very oversexed divorcee who was keeping her kids locked up while she had this, very hot sex life.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Evans.
I think the cat.
It did pour that afternoon. I'll never forget it. It was like we'd all been holding our breath all morning and then just the heavens opened up. And when we saw Alice climb into a car with one of the detectives, we thought, oh, thank God, the kids have turned up.
Can't see a way to fix it. Any luck, Ryder?
And Alice is putting on mascara, looking in her mirror, and she doesn't know where they're going.
Whatever his powers, the Ark needs fire control more.
But it turns out that detective
Let's try again.
I don't know if it was how Alice acted or what, but he had a feeling that there was something she wasn't telling him. And damned if he didn't try to shock it out of her.
And with the help of shutdown to track the real power trip. Here's the map point. I'll see you there.
And he just grabs her by the arm and leads her into the weeds. Captain Latanya here. We're warming up the drive tour, but we need more juice.
What is it? Looks like an observation deck.
We're observing the next time of the place. Thank the goddess, you're all right. Here, this is what's draining the power.
What is this thing?
It looks like the cat attack sheared off some hull coat.
Looking back on it, I guess none of us ever really thought it wouldn't turn out okay. And then all of a sudden we're living in this horror show and it was only gonna get worse.
Whoever built this was smart. Probably saved a lot of lives.
I pray she got out safe.
That deck's deserted though. We have to turn the device off.
I tried pulling the plug, but nothing. Can you
It was
scan
almost 50 years
Maybe
ago.
your Sam can figure it out.
And I remember it like it was yesterday. That little girl lying dead in a vacant lot.
The discovery of the body of the little girl
I'll handle the device.
that totally changes the tenor of the investigation.
Look, we weren't naive. Queens was New York City. We knew about crime, but a 4-year-old gets taken from a bedroom and gets strangled just 8 blocks from her home. From our home. How are we supposed to make sense of that? And I was the mother. That's her right there. That morning, no one outside Kew Gardens ever heard of her. And now it seemed like the whole world was staring her down.
Disconnecting the first cable.
It's amazing how quickly photographers show up.
She just bursts into tears and rushes into her house. So, those were the first tears that the detectives saw.
And that's considered a sign of guilt. She cried for the camera, but not for her daughter.
They're down. Okay, next cable. Ready when you are.
More cats! Take them down!
Goddess, how many came aboard?
When Missy's found dead, her body goes to the medical examiner. They determined that she was asphyxiated.
chief medical examiner could not pinpoint a time of death, except between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m.
And everyone was thinking the same thing, but no one wanted to say it out loud. Where was little Eddie?
All right, now the cable.
They were beating the bushes, literally, going through the parks, going through the streets. And it's about 4 days later when they discover little Eddie's body, 5-year-old boy.
This is their last stand. Break through!
And he's wrapped in a blue blanket in a lot adjacent to the Benwick Expressway.
They never can establish a cause of death because the body is so decomposed.
Most of the violence that occurs with children especially comes at the hands of the parents.
It's like that when we got
Of course, the mother was with the kids last. She had the physical custody of the kids, at least for that night.
Can we still go to FTL?
But you can't dismiss the fact that the father had access to the place.
The maneuvering plan should hold us together. If the FTL burn doesn't, we'll have to cope.
We all got married young back then, 19, 20. It was what you did, especially if you were a good Catholic girl. And who doesn't want a big party with the fancy dress?
I should go and help. There might be something I can do.
When you kissed all your friends and family goodbye,
Not bad for your first
you went home with your new
Sarissa
husband.
should be proud, Daria.
A lot of girls really didn't understand what they had signed up
No,
for.
Lieutenant. Thank you for everything. Got us guided.
Alice had the 2 children very young. Eddie worked out at the airport as an airline mechanic. He worked long hours and he liked to stay out boozing. And Alice was a bored young housewife. She had thought there must be something more to life. So she got herself a job as a cocktail waitress, got babysitters, started hanging out at night herself. Alice got interested in a lot of men, and Eddie got jealous, Eddie got furious. They had split up over this, and Eddie had moved out, was living in a little room nearby to keep his eye on Alice, and he really didn't want to get divorced. He wanted to try to get back with her. He was totally obsessed.
There were all kinds of stories in the neighborhood about Eddie Sr.
Sarissa was forced to choose
Really
between her
lost it
pathfinder
when
and
Alice kicked him out.
She made the
She
right
would
call.
laugh it off, but we all thought he seemed kind of scary.
He had installed a little microphone in her bedroom, and he would sneak into the basement and listen in when she was having her male guests over.
First week.
And a few times, Eddie broke in. I mean, he has to know she's going to be with guys.
With all that craziness and now 2 dead kids, everyone knew the police weren't going to leave Alice and Eddie alone anytime soon. And get this, just like on the TV, when the cops talked to them again, Eddie's story started to change. At this point, Eddie is saying that he did not remain home. He drove to the apartment and watched for signs of Alice. That places him at the exact scene of this crime. He was very insistent that Alice talked to him and she was turning him down. He was kind of coming apart at the seams. You wonder if there was a revenge factor. And so they were suspicious of his story. And not for nothing, Alice's story was starting to sound strange too. She alleges she went to this gas station at 9 p.m. The workers at the gas station later say that they remember it more being closer to 5:30. When Missy's found dead, in her stomach were partially digested dinner of peas, carrots, some macaroni type food, and some string beans. but Alice swore she fed them veal, not macaroni.
Detective Erie claimed that he saw an empty box of manicotti in the garbage.
And if you're a liar about that, aren't you lying about what happened to your children? So the cops told them, there's one easy way to prove you're telling the truth.
So Eddie says okay, and he took the lie detector test.
And passed it. So Eddie is eliminated as a suspect.
So he said to Alice, take the lie detector test and they'll stop. Then finally she agreed. They took her in and they start with the preliminary questions. What's your name? Where do you live? Who's president? And they started answering questions about the case.
Like the Battle of Carcass.
That was the last time you saw your son?
And she claims she saw cigarettes burning through the two-way mirror. And she heard them laughing in the next room. So she ripped all the stuff off and stormed off.
When you're dealing with the death of a child, you would absolutely expect that the parent would do anything in the world to cooperate with the investigation. Anything. And so, if someone refuses, you have to really question, why are they doing this?
None of us knew what she was thinking. And it wasn't just the lie detector. The way she behaved after. The talk in the neighborhood wasn't about poor Alice anymore.
The murder of her children didn't cramp Alice Crimmins' style.
A skeleton crew. Enough to patch up the art.
She was seen
She'll make it
out partying. You know, a week after the discovery of the children's murders, she was still out of the bars, still dancing up a storm, still drinking, still inviting men to her apartment. She just wasn't the grieving mother.
I don't know how you grieve or what stages you go through, but I know one thing. You don't dance and party the next week.
For the police, it was all the proof they needed. She was practically rubbing their noses in it.
As the detectives saw it, her motive was to get the children out of the way so that they would not interfere with her swinging lifestyle. She was the only person in the house with the children when they vanished. She had the motive, she had the opportunity.
Now they just needed to figure out how to get Alice to talk. Or find someone who would.
You know this, don't you?
They need to hear the truth. Let them handle it.
The police figured that if Alice Crimmins' kids were getting in the way of her sex life, there had to be some man out there who wanted them gone too. Takes two to tango, right?
We've got a hell of a story for them.
There were two big boyfriends at the time. There was Tony Grace, a big contractor from Long Island, who was mob connected, or so the theory was.
Sam found a succession.
On the night the kids went missing, Alice told the police she'd called to see what he was doing.
Killed her. I had to be sure the Ark could escape.
Tony Grace had a lot of the money so he could splurge and surround himself with a faux harem. And he's twice as old as Alice.
You gonna come over and see
Next in line.
I wish, but not tonight.
According to him, the night of the children's disappearance, he just kind of brushed her off, and that was the end of it.
Humility can do
He
better.
has a great alibi. He was out with 4 women, the bowling girls. They were married women who went out bowling looking for guys.
I worked out okay.
And there was her other, more steady boyfriend, Joseph Rorick.
The Daria can't face them. She's not
A huntress without the trust
Hello?
of her team. Stands alone.
Hey, Joe.
She is a tree in the desert.
Joe Rorick was
bearing
much
her
cuter than Tony.
my
Younger, but not as rich. She'd go out with him when Tony wasn't around. But I heard Alice was kind of getting bored with Joe.
Joe Rorick was quite a character. He had been a home contractor. You know, a good-looking guy. Wavy hair, well greased. 60s grease.
I'll talk to you soon.
And he also had a wife and many children out on Long Island. But they didn't seem to get in his way.
But the night the kids disappeared, Joe had an alibi. He wasn't with his family, but he had an alibi. The cops figured they couldn't pressure Tony. He knew all kinds of powerful people. But Joe? Who was Joe? He might be willing to talk.
Mr. Rourke. Can we call you Joe?
Sure.
Good. Joe, I need your help.
Of course.
Hey, you okay?
Can
So
I
I came
trust
down
you
here.
today over again?
Let me ask you about Alice
And not
Crimmins.
have a Pathfinder stripped of
What about
everything
her?
she
I
loves.
know you didn't have it.
Turns out he couldn't tell them anything about Alice. But everyone knows if the cops got you on something, they can make you do anything. Boy, oh boy, did they have something on Joe.
We know our mission.
Why don't you tell me about Ramona?
Should have known better than to say that.
Because
to
from
a
what I've heard,
Pathfinder.
she's more of
Thank you for
a
being
Ramon
on the Lucinia.
than Ramona.
Can I tell you something?
Anything.
The old man was right to choose you as
He was
Pathfinder.
bisexual. He actually dated a guy who dressed as a woman. And he was so terrified that they would tell his wife.
You're going to keep dating Alice Crimmins. You're going to get her to tell you what happens.
And they say, listen, Joe, you got to help us, and we'll watch out for you.
Okay.
You know we can't do this without you.
Whatever you want.
Scott.
Okay, I don't want to do this without you.
Look, I know
This was the real turning
the
point
other
for
person
detectives.
gets
They
back.
got, aha, now
It's
we've
fine.
got Joe Rourke, and
Real
she's
talk.
going to tell him everything.
I feel a hell of a lot better with you here.
Would a hug be okay?
Absolutely.
Never no more to call your name.
I'm okay.
When you left, you
I will
broke my heart.
Just have some thinking to do. If I can get you
Because
off
I
my mind.
never thought we'd part. Every hour of the day you will hear me say.
And the police, taking a cue from Eddie Crimmins, started listening in on her too. So they had everything bugged. Her bedroom, her phone. They obviously were listening in on everything she did.
I know, it seems a little sneaky, but you gotta remember there were 2 dead kids here. And they were so convinced Alice did it, they had to be there when she made a mistake. And the amazing thing was, Alice knew they were doing it, and it didn't stop her. In fact, she figured she'd give them a show. Can you imagine?
This went on for a long time, listening to Alice Crimmins' sex life, basically getting nothing that gave them a case.
Police still couldn't get anything solid on Alice. In fact, aside from all the action in the bedroom, Alice dropped the hot-to-trot routine and cleaned up her act a little.
The attractive red-haired cocktail waitress, the flame-haired swinger in the tabloids. I mean, it was constant headlines. And so she went to work as a secretary.
And so the cops decided to dial up the pressure.
She got jobs under her maiden name of Burke. And Peering would call up her employers and say, you know who you got working for you?
That notorious lady from Queens, that Alice Crimmins who killed her kids.
And she'd get fired.
I haven't seen that kind of surveillance on some of the top organized crime hitmen in the city. To think that they could do that and that the district attorney would even allow that is mind-boggling.
It's just really hard to believe when you see how far they went to try to bring this woman.
They taped her, they pressured her for 2 years.
They listened 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And in all that time, she said not one incriminating thing.
They had a district attorney who said, you know, there's no evidence here. And they were going to stop the investigation, but Peering said, wait, give me a little more time.
These cops were fathers. When that's emotional like that, there's this urgency, this feeling of we need to solve this and we need to find justice for these children.
Peering had them go back through the thousands of tips they got in the mail.
And they find this letter from someone who says that she was looking out her window that night and saw something signed anonymous.
So the police had their first lead in 2 years. But how do you find someone who wants to stay anonymous?
I would like to welcome our Asari pilgrims to the Nexus. You've had a long journey, but we're thrilled that Ark Lucinia has finally arrived. We ask for patience as we find homes for everyone. To those who doubted the future, the proof stands before you. The Asari live, and so does the dream. Ah, there's the hero who made it possible, Pathfinder Ryder. Do you have any words for us?
Like Director Tan said, the dream lives. If we all pull together, this can work.
Exactly what I would have said. In fact, I think I did. We all owe Ryder a debt of gratitude. In the meantime, please enjoy whatever comforts the Nexus can offer a weary traveler.
Excuse me. You're the one who saved us?
I am?
I owe you everything. If it hadn't been for you, I'd be dead.
We all would. Now we have a future.
A bright future. You've been through a tough time, but it gets better. There's plenty of good in Helios.
I can't wait to find it.
I can't believe you said that.
What? I was just being honest.
There's a difference between being honest and being an ass.